Welcome to another edition of Dream Up, coming to you from KABF 88.3 FM in Little Rock, nationally syndicated and internationally streamed. It's the show where a reporter, myself, a comic, who you'll see in a second, and an ace businessman walk into a bar and came out with a great hour of talk about how they each achieved their dreams in their distinct walks of life, complete with interviews each week with celebrities, experts, and average Joes and Janes who've achieved their dreams and are here to talk about the obstacles they overcame to reach them. Today, our very special guest is the author and filmmaker of the behind the teen classic, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, and the fantastic movie newly out on DVD, Dear Evan Hansen, Stephen Chbosky. Woo!
Wow, that's a good get. I'm so excited to have him on our show, man. He's a talented writer. Carl, how does that make you feel?
I know, and I looked, and he's my age, he's 50, and I'm like, well, okay, well, I write for a couple websites. Oh boy, but anyway,
wait. I'm going to go back. First of all, you both do different styles of writing. You're a reporter, and you're also a film reviewer, and you're fantastic at what you do.
Thank you.
He does something entirely different. It's like saying, well, we're both in track, but he's the marathon runner and you are a shot putter, and you pick on yourself for being a shot putter. It's a different skill. You're very good at what you do, Carl.
Yeah, it's what I would love if I could do it. I've written one script and I'm bone dry on how to get others done, and I didn't sell the one, but the thing is, God puts you in different, gives you different types of gifts. Like you said, he may not be able to be a good journalist. Who knows? So, same. I guess you're right.
But well, you know what? This reminds me of the Saturday Night Live skit, Cowbell. It's you both put on your pants one leg at a time, but when he's done, he makes hit movies.
Oh man! Wow, burn. Well, let's get to it, guys. I'm one of your hosts, Carl Double Portion Kozlowski, because I want a double portion of blessings from the Lord, and I'm supersized. So I'm in Little Rock, and with me from Hollywood is
Ron. I tell jokes for a living, Pearson, or as my parents would call me, Ron. You made some bad life choices by dropping out of college to do that, Pearson.
Yeah. And then
with us from Dallas, my brother-in-law.
Yeah, Todd Big Ticket Turner. I don't even know what big ticket means, but it's on the back of my license plate now. So, I got to keep it. Not even sure where it came from, but it's stuck all these years.
It's really on your license or no?
No, we're only allowed 6 letters here. So it's just BT.
Wow.
Boy, my brother thinks that means something entirely different. And if you guys get that, you're far more in the stoner crowd than I ever believed.
I keep it vague, brother. I keep it vague.
That is so funny. I love it. What a crazy week it is. I'm glad to be back on the radio, but we're getting ready for Christmas.
Yeah.
And it's just so much stress getting everything. Todd, Big Ticket here, is coming to my house with all of his children. So now they're coming from Texas to California. And what are we going to do? We're going to Disneyland, which sounds like the happiest place on earth, doesn't it? Yeah. But in reality, you get up at 5 a.m. to get in the longest line of the day, the California freeway system. By the time you get there, you have to park. Disneyland has the world's largest parking garage. It's the world's largest. You just get out and you're wandering around for hours just trying to find a way out. You just like 2 hours later, am I stuck in IKEA? How can I not find a way out? And then you take a giant escalator down to get in a half-hour-long line to get on a tram because you're not there yet. You get off the tram, you get another half-hour-long line to buy your tickets. You get to the front of the line, money starts shooting out your rear end. You just can't stop it. You're just like a cut pig. Blood won't stop going. And then, they go, we need more money. And I'm like, okay, I have to donate blood, kids, or we're not getting it. Okay, fine. I'll donate a kidney, and then we can all get in. Then you get in another half-hour-long line to get in because Anaheim, just to get in the front gate, because Anaheim is a German word. It means get in line. About that time, my son looks up because sometimes Disneyland's not his favorite. What kid doesn't like Disneyland, by the way? He's got problems. He looks up, Dad, I want to go home. I'm going to go. Stop it. You're going to go inside and you're going to enjoy it. I have one kidney. We have a third mortgage. Now have fun. He goes, Dad, I want to go to Tomorrowland. I go, there is no future. There is no future.
We just
You'll be lucky to get into public high school land at this rate.
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
That's Disneyland. And yes.
Can I say something? I think I'm going to cancel and just send you a Christmas card. You just run the whole holiday spirit for me with Disneyland. Like I'm out. Not coming.
Well, Todd's kids always like to meet. I want to meet, his daughter. I want to meet the princesses. And it sounds so great because the princesses are all there, Belle, Jasmine, Aurora. And then you see them and they're all dressed up. And then you see them backstage and they got tattoos and a cigarette. And you kind of break down the names. Belle, Jasmine, Aurora. She's a girl whose stripping career really didn't work out now, did it?
Yeah, no kidding. Right.
Sometimes behind the facade, it's not the same.
Yeah, don't look behind the curtain ever.
Yeah, actually, we're big Disney fans, huge Disney fans, and I'm looking forward to going with you and the kids, Todd. We've done it before, and our two families, Carl, close out. We've done it a few times where we're the last people out of the park, and they have security kind of walking behind us. And every time you turn around and look at them, they stop and act like they're not following you. And then you walk a few more feet and turn and look. It's really fun. It's sort of to blend the two themes. When you turn around and see Donald Duck with the cigarette in his mouth and pushing a broom to clean up the park, you've been there a little too long. Time to go home at 3 a.m. Yes, totally. Well,
yeah,
hey guys,
I pushed the limit one time myself, and we were finally. I think we were going so slow because it's back when I had problems with my leg, and we were going so slow. They did finally approach us, and we're like, "Are you okay?" And we basically pushed us out.
Well, I get it. They want to go home. Hey guys, time to get on to the quote of the week, guys. Quote of the week. Here we go. This one is from Cicero, and that's the Roman senator, Carl, not your favorite guy from your pizza place, Carl, down at Cicero.
Yeah.
I love this quote. Gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, but it is a parent of all the others. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say that again. Gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, but it's the parent of all the others. What do you guys think on that one?
Well, for me, I agree, because I say if you can't be thankful for what you do have, why should God reward you with more blessings? And if you have a grateful attitude for your life, that pays off by you're going to be kinder to others. You're happier in all things. It can help you pull out of bad emotional spirals on tough days. And, and I think it's so important and very valuable to keep a gratitude list of at least 5 things a day that you're grateful for.
That's very specific. 5 things a day that you're grateful for. So give us an example of what those would be today, Carl.
Oh, geez, today? Well, the fact that I'm getting to interview, I'm not just saying this, but getting to interview a guy who I'm a tremendous fan of. It's just a privilege to do this radio show. Grateful to the station KBF for giving us the opportunity to always do this. And then also I'd say I'm grateful for my girlfriend. I'm grateful for my job, and that my job lets me be funny at Walmart. That funny Walmart guy on TikTok, check it out. I'm grateful for my parents for helping me out when I was in a jam a couple of years ago and helping me get my life back going. So,
you know what I'm grateful for, Carl?
Yeah.
The fact that you have eyes, because you've been looking down this whole time. I haven't even seen your eyes.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I don't know. I'm looking away at my little script here. Sorry.
Carl does have eyes. Hey, I'm so thankful.
Okay, I'll look up.
Todd, weigh in, buddy.
Man, I tell you what, I love the quote. Gratitude is important because, when you think about what you deserve, we deserve nothing but death, to be honest. So anything more than that is a giant blessing and something to be grateful for.
That I want to echo pretty depressing. We deserve death. But, you're looking from a God perspective, but if you just look from an average Joe, I wake up in the morning and you say to yourself, I deserve death today. I don't think I'm going to accept that phrase, Todd. I
Yeah,
think that's not really the dream up phrase we're looking for.
But it's true. Anything above that is a total blessing. I agree with Carl that, gratitude.
Well, that's phrased differently. Anything above, but
hold on, Ron. The gratitude is an effective antidote to any destructive emotion. It's what Carl just said, is the ideas of I'm not getting what I want, I deserve better. All those things are bad mindsets. But that's why I say, when you feel like you deserve nothing, then everything feels like a blessing, and you can be appreciative of everything. And once you pass that point of not expecting anything, but to be grateful, it does trump all the other negative emotions. And I think it's very healthy. I agree. I totally agree with that statement of gratitude as the parent.
All right. The way you just laid it out was perfect. And
I was trying to get there while you were
that opening sentence
talking about
I didn't like. But okay, so here's what gets me about this phrase. Gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues. Who even talks about virtues anymore? Who even talks about virtues? They're not put. When we were kids, you had Aesop's fables, you had all sorts of things pushing virtues out. And today, I think they're gone. Now a rapper's going to rap about money and a handgun and a girl on his side. And what are the virtues in any of the modern culture? But I just Googled 15 virtues: patience, kindness, honesty, self-control, courage, love, respect, responsibility, fairness, compassion, empathy, understanding, generosity, frugality, integrity. I mean, you really don't get those anymore, which is weird. So it used to be, even in the modern culture back, remember the coaches? They were all about preaching virtues to their teammates or their players. If nowadays, where do you have? You have coaches that the New England Patriots coach, Spygate, Deflategate, the things they're pushing are just win at all costs. Houston Astros sign stealing gate. You remember they were doing that during the World Series. It's kind of different from this guy. This right here is a signed John Wooden pyramid of success. But if you go over his pyramids, his number one lesson in leadership is good values attract good people. And love is the most powerful 4-letter word. Call yourself a teacher. Emotion is your enemy. I mean, he does all the virtues in his pyramid of success. And I don't know. To me, it's crazy that to even talk about it, like most people would be sitting there going, I want to talk about something different. And I don't know. It just says a lot for the culture to me. I think the culture is washing away. What do you guys think?
I 100% agree. I think it ties into what we were saying a minute ago, is that I'm not trying to bring up death, but right now people are talking about their rights and what they deserve, and everything's about what I can get, what I want, and what I deserve, instead of this idea of like, you're owed nothing. You're owed nothing. And
so we'll put that in victim mentality. We'll put that
victim
over.
Mentality.
Everything's a victim mentality. And when you're in the victim mentality, you're locked into a negative cycle, versus what we're saying is a gratitude cycle, right?
Yeah, a gratitude cycle. And then you're thankful. And then because you're thankful, maybe you'd like to pick up some more virtues. I agree. The culture doesn't preach virtues nearly enough. You're 100% on.
And I think I know why. Because they're not funny. Let's get on to the news. Something that's funny.
Okay. All right. Well, each week we like to bring you stories from the week's news about dreams achieved or attempted and failed. And so now the news. Actually, our lead story this week is literally about dreams. Companies are about to start injecting ads directly into our dreams. Advertisers are working on ways to hack into our dreams. A recent survey notes that 77% of marketers plan to put something called dream tech advertisements to use within the next 3 years. Companies like Molson Coors have been working on dream incubation. Earlier this year, the company created an ad campaign that promised free beer in exchange for people's participation. So Ron's in. The test for dream incubation involved a video of dancing beer cans, talking fish, and it included pop star Zayn Malik, all to drive up interest in the product. So they say it can also be used for good things like treating medical issues like PTSD. as well as to make. But people are worried that tech companies will use it to make watches, wearables, and other tech track our sleep and invade our privacy even more. So what do you say, guys?
Well, I'm pretty sure this is old news, Carl, because Cindy Crawford, McDonald's, and Coors Light have been playing this trick for years on me.
Yeah.
Cindy Crawford, what a throwback. You know your generation now.
Hey, she's been in my dreams for decades.
Boom.
Well, for me, I think this, I do think this actually works, because for a while last year when I was having trouble sleeping, I would leave on a radio in my room while I went to sleep. And so I'd wind up having the weirdest dreams about hanging out with Elton John or the Smashing Pumpkins. So, I do think this happens.
I remember you telling me about that. That's funny. Yeah. Hey, look, this really takes our show Dream Up literally, right? This is the literal version. And if they can really do that, I would pay big money, guys, to make me a hero in my wife's dreams, because I get in trouble for things I do in her dreams every week. Every single week. She's just like, you know what you did? You turned me into a merry-go-round, rolled down the street, and left me with a shoebox. How dare you? I'm like, what? It's just a dream. And, I can't control what I do in other people's dreams, but apparently the ad agencies can. So go at it. I'll pay big money for that, guys.
Yeah, that's not a bad deal. If you could use it to manipulate other people, that's not bad. I'll just tell you this. If Flo from Progressive shows up in my dreams, I'm going to drink coffee at 11 p.m. and stay up all night long.
Wow.
Are you saying you have a crush on Flo? Cindy Crawford and Flo? Is that it?
I'll take Cindy.
Oh, stay up all night long. I thought you meant with her. Like, oh, hi, Flo.
No. I'm not going to bed for 3 days straight when they're trying to advertise to me. I can promise you that.
Sadly, Flo is more my speed than Cindy. I mean, not that I like her more, but that's what God's going to put me with, is a Flo.
Hey, I like Flo. Flo's funny. Good actress. I like it. Go for it, Carl. Make it happen, buddy.
All right. Well, hey, guys, our guest is waiting for us. So I say let's jump to him. And now, one moment, our guest. All right. So our guest today is the writer and filmmaker behind the teen classic Perks of Being a Wallflower, the creator of the cult classic series Jericho, the writer of the live-action Disney smash Beauty and the Beast, the director of the smash hit Wonder, and now the director of the movie adaptation of the Broadway smash Dear Evan Hansen, which is out on DVD this week. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Chbosky.
Yay!
Thank you. I thank you for the applause.
Yeah, I know, it's such a thunderous round we give you.
It's unbelievable.
So I want to say congrats on the movie of Dear Evan Hansen. I saw it opening week in the theater, and I was really blown away because I did not know, I did not see the play, and I knew almost nothing. I knew that it was going to be about what the themes were about, that it was going to be about, dealing with teen suicide and alienation and things like that. But that trailer, my God, it was like, when I saw him start singing in the auditorium, opening up about his emotions to the people, it just floored me. I sound like I sob all the time, but I mean, I told you a story before the show of crying during Poetic Justice, but I don't think I cried that hard since Poetic Justice. There was just something about it. So I wanted to know, how did it come about you got to direct this, since it was one you didn't write?
Well, as you mentioned Beauty and the Beast, I also did the screenplay for Rent. So I've been around musicals. Okay. I've been around musicals for a while. I love them. I've loved them ever since I was, probably the blondest villager of Anna Tevka in the history of the Fiddler on the Roof back in Pittsburgh. But and I was incredible as Mr. Bundles and Annie the following year. Perhaps you heard. Unbelievable. So really, musicals is something I just love them since I was a teenager, and I still remember going to Broadway for the very, very first time and seeing a show with my thespian troupe in the spring of 1988, and it was my first Broadway show was Starlight Express.
Nice.
And and I saw the original Chorus Line and
Wow.
the original that was still running, and Into the Woods and Les Mis, and it was incredible. So anyway, it's been in my blood a long time, and I've always been looking for a musical to direct. And I'd heard about Dear Evan Hansen. I had heard that Perks of Being a Wallflower was actually kind of like maybe something of like at least a spiritual influence on it. I'd been told that about the songwriters, which was very sweet. And so I was curious, but I, like you, like you, Carl, I didn't know anything about the story. I didn't even know the music. I think I maybe heard Ben sing Waving Through a Window one time, maybe at a Tony broadcast or something. But so I knew what it, but I didn't know what the story was. And 2.5 hours later, I was transported. I couldn't believe the surprising nature of the story. It just kept getting deeper and deeper and more twisty and surprising. It was like, how did these guys turn Heathers into like a page turning thriller that makes you cry? It made no sense as a piece of writing, and yet I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the characters. I loved the songs. I thought Stephen Levinson's book and then later screenplay was brilliant. And so I remember the next day calling my team and saying, look, I don't know if they're ever doing this as a movie, but if they do, I would kill to direct it. I love it. And then, I got some meetings, and, the rest is history.
Wow. Well, that's great. So now that the movie's hitting DVD, I know you're hoping this takes off and has a long afterlife on DVD, streaming, and cable. So what do you think draws people to this story, since it's been such a Broadway sensation too? I mean, is it just the depth or other things?
I think it's a combination. I think that especially now, what we've all lived through the last year and a half, the sense of isolation that we've all experienced. Liza, here, your show is now in 3 different cities. We are all communicating via these devices. It gives us more freedom in how we live, but at the same time, it also leads to a little bit more isolation, some loneliness. And so, for me, what I've noticed, the people that see it, they love it. It speaks to them in terms of whatever grief they might have experienced, if they've lost somebody, or at least they've been, near a loss. We all know what that feels like, certainly in the last year and a half. But also just the sense of a show that unabashedly emotionally says you're not alone. These things that you struggle with, whether it's any kind of like mental health challenge or whatever, that we all have these struggles, and yet there is a map to overcome it, and a beautiful message of be yourself, and ultimately you're going to be accepted for who you are. I just found the story to be incredibly redemptive and just very, very moving. And also with the musical element and those great songs by Pasek and Paul, which some of them are already Broadway classics. I don't know. I just think people really, really respond to it the way that I did, and obviously because you didn't know anything about it either, Carl, the way that you did.
Yeah.
To me, some of the current themes in society and having children in the late teens or early 20s, I've been watching this for 5, 6, 7 years. The amount of social anxiety kids have these days is out. It's way beyond what we had as kids. And this show that you've done, I think, speaks to that problem. What answers come out of it, or what hopes? You kind of addressed it in the last one, but I want to be even more specific, because we've got a story about kids suffering through social anxiety. Mm-hmm. But what are our answers? What do I say to my kids? What do you say to your kids, Stephen?
Well, I think for me, my kids, I will say this, I'm incredibly grateful that my daughter's 9 and my son is 6. So they are not the guinea pigs for social media and what it has done. Lessons have been learned. There's fail safes. The whistleblower just came out with the Facebook thing. We're starting to learn how this works. And we're also seeing in real time, and we all know that, we all, we just had Thanksgiving. We all knew it probably at the Thanksgiving table, how polarized people have become, even politically. It's weird. The tribalism has been very strange, and how deep it is. And so, and the algorithms are part of what's doing this to us, or we're doing it to ourselves. So what I do is I have a few things with the kids. My daughter's not going to get a phone until minimum she's 13, period. Like there's no, wow. It's non-negotiable. My wife and I, we heard this lecturer, this guy, a really interesting guy, talked about the differences between boys and girls and how they learn and how their brain chemistry is. He spoke in generalities, which was interesting. He just said, listen, I'm telling you right now, 13. If you go before that, it's like, I know it's convenient, but it'd be, if you can hold out, hold out. And the way he spoke about it, I said, all right, I'm in there. Also, setting time limits is very helpful. And, getting help if they need help. My daughter has some social anxiety, so does my wife. Kind of runs in the family. So yeah, there's just like coming at the problem head on. But more than anything else, it's like, we just have a rule. Okay, if we're at the dinner table, there's no devices, they all go away. You know what I mean? Just practice. I swear to God, practice having dinner, because it's something that we all take for granted. We're older, like just talking at dinner is how we grew up. So whatever that social anxiety is, we don't have. But a lot of these kids, it's like they live on their devices all the time, even through dinner. And so they don't have that practice. So we make it a point of doing that as well. Look, trust me, I'm not a perfect parent by any stretch of the imagination. We struggle quite a bit to try to figure out and navigate this landscape, but we do what we can. And I think more than anything else is that parents should give themselves a little bit of not a pass, but like not be so hard on themselves, because this is a completely unpredictable landscape. How are we supposed to know what this stuff does? We're learning it as we go. So for people to give themselves a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Ron. Sorry.
It's such an important topic. I love the way you're addressing it, Stephen. Really, Dear Evan Hansen is really a great amalgam of a lot of kids with a lot of social anxiety, and it's just the typical tragedy that just keeps winding itself around. And communication to me is exactly the real answer. Communication with grace, and sounds like you guys are already down that. And just as a parent, it's even hard to set those limits and stick by them, because your kids fight you on them.
Yeah, they do. Of course.
Yeah. And it's impressive you have such a good take on it. And Todd has 3 young ones, and I'm curious to hear what he's going to add here.
Well, I'm gonna go way deep. I wrote something down for later in the interview, but I think it fits here. So Stephen, at your point in your career, you have options of what you can do. I mean, you're a Renaissance man, quite honestly. So when you look back at your career, what do you want to be known for? Like some people, are known for a book or a movie or whatever, but there's a thread that runs through them all. Mm-hmm. And so what makes you pick projects that you work on like this? Like, what is it that you want to be known for? And did this project fit in that thread? Was this an outlier? I'm just curious, who are you, and what do you want to be known for 100 years from now?
Well, what a truly interesting question. That's a great question. First of all, Dear Evan Hansen absolutely fits into my own through line about what I'm, trying to do with my career. Listen, I'm a dude from Pittsburgh, and we're pretty practical, folks. Like that's kind of how we're built. And so I know I could work for the rest of my life. And when I pass, if I'm lucky and they want to write about me, like the author of The Perks of Being a Wallflower, that's what you know what I mean? I'm already there. It doesn't matter. And I know that because look, I'm a very blessed person. I wrote this book, this coming of age book, and it's, I don't know how many copies. I think it's up to 6 million copies in 30 whatever languages now. And so I'm really, really a lucky guy that happened. Whoever predicts like, oh, I know why that happened, they're lying. I know a lot of these people were like, I don't know why that one, it just happened. So practically it's already, the ink is, I think, kind of written. So for me, it's a much more spiritual or profound question of, if I'm going to spend a 1.5 to 2 years developing a movie, because it usually takes about, between all the facets probably about a year and a half, 2 years. It has to serve a larger purpose than just getting paid, although there's nothing wrong with having a job. It has to serve a larger purpose than just being able to direct a film, although that in of itself is quite a, it's quite a lucky thing to be able to do that in the first place. But if it can serve some greater good, whether it's, Perks, which trying to talk about certain traumas, or Wonder that tried to show a light on some, really talk about empathy, or Dear Evan Hansen, which is, as Ron was talking about, deals with social anxiety and some of the other things that befall our kids. Like, I really care about people. I love people very much. I think most people are very good. And if the art I put out into the world, or the entertainment I put out in the world can have maybe a nice message, but not take itself so seriously that it forgets that movies are really entertainment. That's what they're supposed to do. And you can sneak in the themes past that. That's what I want to be known for. I want to put good into the world, and I want to put quality into the world, not only thematic quality, but in terms of whatever writing I'm doing, the character work, whatever it is I'm doing, I want it to be the best it can be. So yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, love that. That's a great question, a great answer. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I wanted to ask, you're a fairly handsome dude, so I was wondering, since you got famous writing The Person Being a Wallflower, were you a wallflower in high school that informed it, or did you have a different way of getting into the mindset of those kind of kids?
First of all, I'm incredibly flattered, Carl.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, as they say.
Yeah, I honestly, I didn't expect. I was like, oh, cool. We're talking to me 3 dudes. I didn't think handsome was coming, but thank you. I appreciate it. So,
I mean, you're not Woody Allen. I would expect Woody Allen to be the type who would write Perks of Being a Wallflower. You know what I mean?
Yes. So was I a wallflower in high school? No, not outwardly. Inwardly, I was. See,
okay.
I was the, the kid in your school, and I guarantee you might have been this guy, or you definitely knew him, that could kind of get along with anybody. You know what I mean? I was never part of any popular crowd. I was really never, other than maybe the thespians when I was a senior, I was really never part of a group. I played soccer. I was a pretty good athlete. So but I got along with the jocks, and I got along with the preppy kids and this, that, but like, I didn't have like a crew. And so I was like that. However, internally, there was like a firestorm going on. I couldn't, there was so much emotionally I was dealing with. I didn't even know it at the time. I didn't even have the language to understand. And when I started to write, I can't tell you how many people that knew me back in high school read The Perks of Being a Wallflower, and they were like, what was going on with you? They didn't recognize it. And I would always say, look, Charlie is kind of my private self, so I know how to get along in the world. And as I said earlier, I really do love people. I'm not shy about being around folks. I don't love parties, but like people, I really enjoy. So yeah, no, not a wallflower per se.
Does that have you connect to any of the characters specifically in Dear Evan Hansen?
Really. I mean, kind of all of them. I remember feeling as lost and kind of, not duplicitous, that's the wrong word, but like how Evan, because Evan tells this line. I really related to Evan because I saw it as an allegory to like your public self and your private self. We all do the best version of ourselves on, whether it's Instagram or like back in the day for me, it was just like, you're putting on, your public image, and then there's the private stuff that you feel in your bedroom or at home when you're alone. And so I really relate to Evan that way. I relate to some of Connor's desperation. God knows I relate to the parents now, all the parents, because of what they go through in the story. But I have to say, of all the characters, when you think, and this might be surprising to say, is Zoe Murphy is kind of my dark horse favorite character in the movie and the show, because to be the sister of the person who lives in the shadow of someone who's really dealing with illness. It's something that I dealt with Wonder. I was so drawn to the little sister in Wonder for the same exact reason. I have a little sister. I feel very, very close to her. My wife, her brother, God bless him, is quite schizophrenic. And she's actually taking care of him today. She's actually going to spend the next 6 hours on the phone with Medicare to get him re-signed up, because they have to do that. And I've seen how she has struggled to just kind of help him. And so Zoe Murphy, I'll always say that I relate to her the most, because whatever I was able to give through how I directed Caitlin, I didn't write the character, but whatever it is I brought, that was my little kind of like love letter to my wife. Same with Via in Wonder.
And that was Caitlin Deiver, correct?
Yeah, she's remarkable.
So
remarkable talent.
I got to work with her on her sitcom for years, and
there you go. Of course,
known her since she was little, and such a fan. A fan.
And she's so effortless with it too. Caitlin is like, I actually had a joke on set where I said, what is the opposite of a diva? It's a Deiver. And that's Caitlin Deiver. She just is. I mean, I coined the phrase, you're a diva.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, I love working with, I work on a lot of sitcoms, sure. Over 300 over the years. And
wow.
And
that's fantastic.
It is. I feel really, really blessed. But I get to work with a lot of these kids when they're young, and then they go on to have huge careers. And it's great to watch Caitlin take off and go, yep, I saw that coming, and she deserves it. And I get happy for these people. It's really a good thing to see when good people and talented people rise to the top, and it's beautiful. I want to take the interview kind of a left turn back to, you grew up in Pennsylvania. Your dad is a businessman. He was what kind of business?
Yeah, he's retired now. He's 77. He's retired. But yeah, he was. Both of my parents, they grew up in Duquesne, which is really, when you think of Pittsburgh Steel, U.S. Steel, that was Duquesne. And Dad, he grew up in a little apartment with his brother and mom and dad up on Grand Avenue, which is like it's like if you want to imagine, like, other than San Francisco, the steepest street you've ever seen in your life, that is Grand Avenue in Pittsburgh. And so they were Steel Town kids. My mom, she was more in the burbsy part of it, but really modest, working class family. They were both wicked smart. They studied real hard. Mom went to Penn State. Dad went to Lehigh. My mother was, I'm very proud of her for this, kind of amazing. She was a math whiz, a math major at Penn State. And so, they worked their way through scholarship and loans and that kind of thing back in the 60s. But when she graduated, she was the original computer as we know it, hardware, software. Before that, IBM or whatever, they would build machines to do one thing. The idea of like having hardware and the software that did different functions, that was a brand new concept in the 60s. It was called System 360. And my mother was a software programmer in 1966.
Wow.
So until she gave birth to me in 1970. And then she took some time off. But then she did tax stuff for H&R Block. But my father, yes, absolutely. He got an accounting degree. Why? Because when he tried engineering in his freshman year at Lehigh, he told me in his final, he scored a 14. So it was time to switch. He became an accountant for Price Waterhouse, and then later got into steel. And then at the height, he kind of rose through the ranks and worked really hard. And there was a company, it's gone now, but it was called Wheeling Pittsburgh Steel. And he was the chief financial officer at the end of his tenure there. And they're really, ironically though, my mother wanted to be an actress and my father wanted to be a writer, and they never told us. And then later, when my sister, who was an actress, now is a writer, her show Joe Pickett premieres on Saturday.
Wow.
We actually followed in their invisible footsteps. We had no idea that's what they wanted to do until they told us, yeah, you did exactly what we wanted to do.
Wow.
But they never pressured us. It was kind of remarkable.
I know I have something I want to say, but go ahead, Todd.
Oh, I do too. All right, so this is a perfect segue into my question. And this feels like a softball question, but I really want you to dig into it.
Okay.
And I was going to ask you this. I was going to have you talk to me about the power of reading and the power of writing and what you were doing to encourage your kids, because they're almost at that age, not necessarily for a career, but just for life. And then wondered what your parents poured into you. They may have had a secret plan of what they want to do with their lives, but did they encourage the arts? Do they encourage reading? Do they encourage writing? And what are you doing with that?
Well, in a very interesting way, my parents, I'm actually followed in their footsteps this way. If they encouraged me, it was completely invisible. My father said, and I remember when I was back in film school, because that's a pretty risky, hey, I'm a kid from Pittsburgh, I'm gonna go off to LA and do film school and I have no plan B. Like not every parent's dream is to hear that. But my father always said, like, look, it's your life, you live it, and I want to put you through school. That's a promise I made to myself when I was a kid. That's what he told me. But your life is yours to live. And so it wasn't like they encouraged us actively. They just didn't limit us. You know what I mean? They to be perfectly honest, I mean, if I think back to the movies I was allowed to watch when I was like 11, like, I'm surprised that social services didn't burst down the door. You're like, are you out of your mind?
I bet I can top your story, Stephen. I bet I can top your story.
You probably can't. With one thing, every now and then, like I would wander down to the basement. The good TV was in the basement.
Yeah.
And I remember one time, the only time I was chewed out was, I guess, The Postman Always Rings Twice with Jack Nicholson and Jessica Lange.
Oh my
and
God.
And my mom's like, get out. I was like, wow, what the heck could that be?
That's a racy one.
Being chewed away. But no, I mean, I was watching The Shining at 11? I was watching Halloween at 10. And these movies scared the living hell out of me. So yeah. But at the same time, those things, Stephen King, they didn't limit it. They just, whatever we were curious about, they let us just go be curious, and they didn't censor it, which was really interesting. And other than this phone stuff, because I do think there's a danger there, so I'm trying to figure that out. My daughter, she's 9, and she is a horror buff, and every day she's like, Dad, can I watch The Shining? And I go, and it's like this, before I can speak, you hear from upstairs, no! And that's my wife. Like, no. Okay, so anyway.
I got to throw my story in. My sixth grade teacher took me and another kid, first of all, on vacation. So we're traveling with a teacher. Wow. And then he goes, hey, you guys want to go to a movie tonight? We're like, yeah. So he goes, okay. So we go to Taxi Driver.
Oh no. How old were you? My gosh.
6th grade.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. Love it.
And you really related to Jodie Foster's character.
Yes.
So that was really nice. That was really good. Wow. That's yeah, you win. You totally win.
Yeah, so the whole rest of your teen years, you were giving your parents attitude by just going, you talking to me, you feel like.
Yeah. So the funny thing though, going back to Todd's question, it was the only advice I ever got from my dad specifically about reading and writing actually led me in this really remarkable way to the career I've had. See, what I always wanted to be was a novelist. That was the first love, and that's what I thought a writer did. And I remember I was 12 and I said, Dad, I just said, I want to be a writer. And he said, well, great writers are great readers. And then he kind of left the room to smoke a cigarette and watch the Penguin game. You know what I mean? That was his thing. So he kind of dropped that little nugget and left. And what he was trying to do was encourage me to read more. I was actually a very slow reader. Like I mentioned earlier, my daughter, she's dyslexic, and I think I'm undiagnosed. It wasn't a thing back then to diagnose all this stuff. So I was an incredibly slow reader when I was young. And so I didn't read. I was not a great reader at all. Later, I caught up, but at the time I wasn't. So when my dad said, great writers are great readers, I went, huh. I didn't take it as advice. I took it as a rule. Like, oh, I was like, that's a shame. I guess I don't get to be a novelist. Oh, well, I said, well, I watch movies all the time. I guess I read movies. Okay, I'll write movies then. And so that is why, if he had not said that, I would probably be a college professor somewhere working on my 10th novel. That is my guess. And as it turned out, by encouraging me without even knowing it to follow cinema, all of my, because I never took a novel writing class. I've written 2 of them now. I've never taken a novel writing class. All of my training as a writer is for the screen. So all the other stuff is instinctive. And so that's what led to this strange, some of the stylistic things that I do for Perks and for Imaginary Friend, my second book, all come from cinema training. And I'm not trying to be tricky. It just happened. So no, that's really, to answer your real question, that's it. That's the best advice I ever got, partly because I completely misunderstood the advice.
Wow.
Well, one thing that I find fascinating is there's lots of people have their books adapted into movies. Many get to write the adaptation, many don't also, but how you went from being, I don't think you'd ever directed a movie before, certainly not a feature that I'm aware of, and they handed you the keys to directing Perks of Being a Wallflower also. How did you pull that off? Did you just have so much say and clout because it was such a monster hit, or was it something else?
Well, I mean, they gave me the keys because I never sold them the keys. You know what I mean? Like I sold them the car, but I kept the keys. You know, it was kind of like, you know, and I mean, I don't mean that in a cheeky way. Basically, sure. I had the book. There were many offers over the years. I would never sell it, and because I knew that if I went through the traditional development with this, with such a delicate book with Perks, that I would never survive. There's no way. I knew enough to say, no, you hold this one, don't worry. So after Jericho, you know, I had some money, and I took myself off the grid basically for a year and a half, and I worked on that screenplay. And there was a lot of other things. I met my wife then. I quit smoking cigarettes. Like basically, I was trying to right the ship because Jericho was a really, really tough experience. And I was trying to, you know, recover from it because, you know, network TV, 22 episodes is something else. I've never seen, you know, my hardest day on anything is nothing compared to what that thing was. And so I just wrote it, Perks. And when I was done and I finally got it into the shape that I thought this is worth shooting, then I shared it with producers, a bunch of them. 3 producers responded. And then I had meetings, and then I chose the producers that I thought were right. You know, Leanne Halford and Russ Smith and John Malkovich, who did Juno, because I thought Juno was a terrific movie. Said, okay, you build the family. Now let's try to cast it. And I got really lucky. The fact that Logan Lerman and Emma Watson both were perfect for their parts, and they both were part of these franchises. Like Percy Jackson was a really big book series, and the movie that Chris Columbus made was really successful. And you know, obviously Emma Watson's Hermione Granger, you can't get bigger than that. And so I got really lucky that the 2 kids that were perfect brought all the stuff. So when we walked into, you know, Summit Studios, now Lionsgate, they merged. It was kind of a slam dunk. It happened. And so the way I kept the keys was I built it. And then when we sold it, it was there. It's not like I didn't sign a contract that said if I completely messed up, they could fire me. They have their own fail safes, but no, that was it. I basically patiently built this thing.
Wow.
And then once you get a couple of great actors to commit to you and these wonderful producers, you know, the studio calms down because ultimately a director's main job is to land talent and then to deliver days. And, you know, look, trust me, if I messed up week 1, I was out. There was no way. But luckily I found that I loved it. You know, I gave myself full permission to hate making movies and directing, but I didn't. I loved it. And it's actually now one of my great joys.
So
yeah, that's great.
I have a question about your confidence. You know, you come from Pittsburgh, your parents aren't in the arts. You have a theater background in high school. You get to USC. USC is, you know, all the big dogs are running there, especially in the film department. Did you find your way and find confidence immediately at USC, and you seem to strike pretty strong straight out of USC and have made some fantastic choices? Did you have a team around you? And I know at one point you met Stuart Stern, who wrote Rebel Without a Cause, and became your mentor. How much did that factor into your success?
Well, I would say, Stuart here, I'll talk about confidence first, then I'll talk about Stuart. Not that they're mutually exclusive, they're not. Confidence, it wasn't so much a confidence, it was more of a, you know, the funny thing about Pittsburgh culturally is you're supposed to like succeed, but act like you didn't, you know what I mean? Like, don't get too big for your britches. It's not, you know, it's just to see it all in context of what it is. You know, my grandfather, you know, this is not exactly what you're asking, but it's I'll share this story so you understand how much my heritage means to me. My grandfather, I'm named for him. In my life, I'm Steve. The reason why it started with The Perks Being Wallflower when it was published. The original cover said Steve Shabosky, and I said, and I asked the folks, hey, could you change it to Stephen? Because my grandfather at the time, I thought he didn't even finish 8th grade. My father recently told me he was actually like he basically did 3rd grade and that was it, and then he was working. And so I just thought it was the greatest thing ever to put Pap's name on my book. This guy that didn't make it to 4th grade, and because he, in living in the Depression, he couldn't get work. It's hard. The confidence really comes from not taking it seriously, not from taking it very seriously. It's saying, I love what I do. I actually think that entertainment and novels and books and plays and musicals and all these other things are very important. I know, we didn't see a lot of new movies for a year. I missed it so much. I couldn't believe how much I missed it. So I do think there's great value. People find purpose with what we do, and they find answers. In some cases, they choose life. I have those letters of I was going to commit suicide, and I read Perks, or I saw it, and I'm going to keep going. Like it can really do something. But compared to like my cousin Chucky, who's a prison guard, or my friend Jay, who he did 8 tours, it's I know what I do is a very privileged thing, and I just leave it at that. You know what I mean? It doesn't make me better than anybody, but it certainly doesn't make me worse, right? So I don't know if that's confidence so much as just, hey, it's not a big deal, right? I did, however, get confidence when I arrived at USC, which as you said, that's where the big dogs go or whatever, and you realize, these are the weirdos from their schools. Great, I'm home. This is great. Okay, we get to be cinema nerds and sit around and talk about Pump Up the Volume. You know what I mean? That's what it all is. It's like, so really, once I realized that it was all an extension of that, a lot of the guesswork was gone. Plus, as I said, I didn't have a plan B. I didn't know what else I wanted to do. It wasn't like I wasn't a good student, but I was like, this is it. This is my chance at a fulfilled life. And if I want, like my parents, they did teach me that they found fulfillment in their marriage. Like they're very happily married people. They're remarkable that way. They've been married over 50 years now. But no, I just knew this was my path. And I just followed it, and I kept going. I maybe had 3 genuine days of doubt over the last 30 years since I chose this.
Wow.
And not that I'm not, worried, like, I hope this one does well. Oh, geez, they didn't like that one. Why? I don't understand. It's not like you don't have those things. We've all been through that. But like fundamentally, like this was the path, and I was going to walk it. Stuart Stern, who was my hero and mentor since the time I was basically 19. Stuart is a very important person to me. As you mentioned, he wrote Rebel Without a Cause. He also wrote this television movie for Sally Field called Sybil, which was one of the great movies. I wish it had been cinemas. I think he would have won an Oscar for that screenplay. It was so good. Anyway, he's a remarkable person, and he's the guy that, when you're a young artist or young anybody, you're always looking for that first person that gets you, genuinely gets you, and sees there's something about you that I recognize. Everybody tells you, hey, it's going to be okay, or everybody tells you, you got something or whatever. But that's lovely. It's the person you believe, and with him, I believed it. And a very fun Stuart Stern story, which I'll explain. One story will tell you all about his character. He was a huge Peter Pan buff, loved it. He was a collector. His godmother was Mary Pickford. He came from Hollywood royalty on his mother's side. His uncle owned a studio. Like these were, he came from a really cool family. And so Peter Pan was his thing. And when he was 80 years old, he was living in Seattle at the time. A theater company heard about him. They were bringing the musical to town, right? Little local production, not a big fancy one, like a little local one. And they looked at his stuff and said, oh, Mr. Stern, we would love to use your material for our program, but we're a little theater. We don't have a lot of money. What can we do? And what do you want? He says, I want 5 minutes of airtime. basically, the cable where Peter Pan flies around?
Yeah.
Stewart at the age of 80 wanted to fly. That's what he wanted to do.
Wow.
And once they figured it out with the insurance, the man flew for a half an hour for his materials. He was that beautiful of a soul.
Wow.
When he passed away, it was a huge loss. And yeah, I'm actually getting choked up even thinking about it. He's a great person, truly great person.
Wow. Hey, I've got, we're running out of time in a couple minutes, but I got one question that is way different than the rest of these, but I think it would be interesting. You created or were one of the creators of Jericho, which was about what happens to a small town called Jericho in the middle of America after nuclear war hits. And, and they're dealing with all sorts of things, of society and nuclear radiation and things like that. I was just wondering, with in the news these days lately, with China is testing hypersonic nuclear missiles, Russia is supposedly getting them ready. Just wondering what your thoughts are. Like, do you feel like, holy cow, this is too scary for words, or do you feel like your show's more timely than ever? Any thoughts like that, or maybe something different?
Well, I feel that I for whatever reason, I'm actually personally, maybe this is naive of me, I don't know. I'm personally far more concerned with the cyber attack stuff, because that's where we really, that's a very vulnerable underbelly to all of our lives. It's where all our money lives, all those things, and you can do it without even knowing who's doing it. So that's what keeps me up at night. It's not because with the nuclear stuff, it's because where the launch was, or things can be traced. It's I do believe, even if people hate us, there is a self-preservation to it, and if we can all annihilate each other in a weird way, I hope that much like what the Cold War was, that it just keeps itself at bay. No, the cyber stuff is what I think about. I've watched many documentaries, probably too many, about where all that's going, and all I can say is I really hope that we get quantum programming first.
Wow. Stephen, as we wrap up, I got this a two-part question.
Okay.
What makes you a good writer? Not what you produce, but what makes you a good writer that differentiates you from others? And what muscle have you not flexed yet that you want to try? Like, what project, what have you not done that you want to do? Or what is it that you think you need to improve on to get to the next level?
It's a great question. I would say, in terms of what distinguishes me as a writer, I know I've talked about Pittsburgh a lot, which I wasn't planning on doing, but I kind of think it's how I was raised. You see, I'm a very emotional person, and I was from day one. So much so that my Steeltown parents, from time to time, were like, "What do I do with this kid? I don't know where did he come from? I don't understand." Because they're just like the Pittsburgh. I don't know what the official Pittsburgh slogan is, but it should be "Walk it off." Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's just walk it off. It doesn't. Come on, let's
That's
go.
funny.
So here I am, this really emotional kid, raised not only by my parents but by my community to walk it off. And yet, what I found was, like, I keep walking, it's just not coming off. I don't know why, it's just not working for me. And so what I learned, because so much was unspoken culturally there, but that it's like, I always found it interesting. All this love, all this, people have all these experiences, and we talk about like the smallest fraction of them. And I was fascinated by people. It created an empathy. I consider myself an empath. And so I understand the emotion, and I understand the desire to hide it very, very well. And so that push-pull is the cornerstone of my work. It's like I wrote a line in Perks Being a Wallflower that I still think it's the best sentence I've ever written, which is, "We accept the love we think we deserve." And just the simplicity of it, that I always felt like, if you're going to write anything that's worth saying, you have to say it in a way that anybody can understand it. And if you're going to use such language that you're going to lose 90%, listen, I'm sure some folks in New York might pat you on the back for that, and God bless them for it. But like, to me, that's not interesting. There is no elite. It's like we're all God's children. You know what I mean? We all deserve respect. And if I'm going to be understood, I want to be understood by as many people as possible, So that's it. It's kind of like a measure of empathy, respect, walk it off, and kind of a poet's soul. So there it is. Plus, I love the Steelers. I know that you love the Cowboys. We can still be friends. So,
sorry.
Go Chargers.
So I just want to say thank you for taking the time to talk to us today.
Oh, sure, of course.
Out of time, unfortunately, but we want to encourage everybody to check out the amazing movie Dear Evan Hansen on DVD and all the streaming services. It's out now, started September 7th, and December 7th. What am I saying? And anyways, thanks again, Stephen, and thanks to KBF for letting us on. Thanks to my co-hosts. And until next time, this has been another episode of Dream Up. Okay.
Yeah, in terms of Todd's second question, in terms of like what I want to do next or how to stretch myself, I've already started to do it. I wrote my novel, Imaginary Friend, which was a horror novel. It has some of the same heart and a lot of other things. Actually, kind of a secret sibling to The Perks of Being a Wallflower. But I plan on adapting Imaginary Friend. You wouldn't look at my work and think, yeah, there's a guy that worships Stanley Kubrick, but I do. I think he's amazing. And I, as a film buff and as a book buff, what I want to do for the rest of my career is find those genres that I really love, growing up, and just trying to do my version of that, whether it's horror or it's film noir. I just did a musical. I'm always looking for thematic relevance. Like I said, I want it to serve the greater good, but at the same time, there's nothing wrong with a film nerd having fun, which is what I intend to do.
I want to see Stephen Chbosky